Roy Simmons is the perfect Horatio Alger story of our time. Orphaned as a child, passed around from one home to another, he rose above all his handicaps to become a remarkable business leader, an entrepreneur of great capacity, a respected citizen of this community, a man of kindness, ever mindful of his own beginnings, a generous contributor to the arts, one who is strong and unwavering in his religious convictions, a true companion to a wonderful wife, and a great father to a gifted family.
When he was a young boy, he had this produce business. He would go to the market there in Salt Lake and buy the produce and then put the produce on his wagon, and then he would go through the neighborhood and he had certain customers. And that's how he would make the money. When most kids during that age would be out playing ball or just playing around doing nothing, Roy Simmons was out there working and making some money. And then when he got beyond that and decided to move on, he was smart enough, wise enough, that he sold that business to another boy. I guess that was the first business he ever sold.
It's just one of those things in America. The opportunity is so great here that you just can't believe it if you want to do it. If you're aware of an opportunity, that's where Roy was great. He was always aware of an opportunity.
In my junior year at the university, I had an opportunity to get a job at the Salt Lake Tribune as a copy boy. And the copy boy just ran errands to carry copy from reporters and from other.
He worked for the paper, and I think he was getting $16 a week, and he wanted $18, and they wouldn't give him that. But he's going out to cash his check. And the man talked to the editor at the time. He said, "Where are you going, Roy?" And he said, "I'm going down to cash my check. Would you mind cashing mine for me?" So he brought in the check, and he said, "Here's your $75.75.
I said, "Is it true you only earn $75 a week?" And he said, "That's right, Roy." And I said, "Well, gee, I'm going to quit." He said, "Why?" Well, I said, "Well, you've been here all your life, and you're the top man in the paper, so there just isn't that much future for me." And he said, "I'm going to miss you. Sorry, but that's the way it was." So I quit and got a job selling insurance.
I think one of the wonderful things about Roy and Tibby is the fact that they met doing a play right over here at Kingsbury Hall when they were both students at the university. It was a play called Grandma Old Style, and Tibby played Roy's grandmother, and Roy says that he may be the only person in the state of Utah to have actually married his grandmother.
Well, I loved being his grandmother because I could boss him.
He got into the banking business because my mother's father was in the banking business out in Layton. And this was back during the Depression, and he took a job out at the First National Bank of Layton, and it just resonated with him. He was good at it.
She was a banker before I was. She worked for her father, and she was 25% of the crew.
I worked at the bank in Layton. Roy would have to wait till I balanced the books until we could go home.
I would have put in a nickel for her, but she wouldn't stop till she found that nickel.
She's always been a really hard worker, and you'd get home from school and there was just no rest. Because there were things to do out in the yard, and she was quite a taskmaster. And I remember she used to take tours of the Beehive House on Monday afternoons. It was my favorite day of the week because she'd come home and actually get to go out and horse around because she wasn't there to channel you into something more productive.
Talk to me a little bit about the kind of stuff you guys would talk around at the dinner table.
Banking, banking, banking.
When you think what he's accomplished at Zions Bank, when he and his group of investors bought it in 1960, I think there was like $150 million in assets and 110 employees. And today it has over 19 billion, 20 billion in assets and 7,000 employees. It's a remarkable feat that he and his family have put together.
The idea of someday having it become a multi-billion-dollar bank was completely beyond the wildest dreams.
And in doing this, he has never lost sight of what's really important, I think, in life, his family. You see he and Tibby together, and you know they're in love. You know that's a great partnership. You see him washing the dishes and helping her cook the food and clean the house.
I think any discussion about our mother can be complete without really thinking of the influence that her family had on our family. She was very, very close to her sisters, who most of them all lived fairly nearby, and they were her best friends. And the phone would ring at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it would be one of her sisters, would be Oma or Bonnie Ray or Carol, calling, and that was just routine. In fact, they would quite often get together to complete a project late at night, and it wasn't at all uncommon for her to head off at 11 o'clock or at midnight to go over to her sister's home that was just a few miles away, and they would work on some project, be it a quilting project or getting ready for a party or something that they were doing for someone else, and they would work throughout the night. Of course, that made Dad feel as if he had to go as well and help out, and it wasn't at all uncommon to see the sisters doing the project and their husbands sprawled out on the couches, fast asleep in the middle of the night, trying to be supportive of their wives' crazy habits.
I'm happy to pay tribute to Roy Simmons. I served with him in the bank for many years and had great respect for him. He was orphaned really as a baby, and then went through a series of 5 sets of parents, really, of one kind or another in about 4 years, and moved from here to there. And through all of it, he had, at a very early age, the evidence of what he is now. 10 years old, he was had a job delivering flowers in Salt Lake City. And with that start that some would think was a handicap, that all was brought into balance when he found Elizabeth. Now you're wondering who Elizabeth is. Elizabeth is Tibby. And that brought a balance and a power into his life that might have been lacking, and they have been a wonderful pair. In order to know about Roy, you have to know about Tibby, and you have to be in their home. Their home down in Rockport and their home up in Kaysville, and you see Tibby as a wonderful, very cultured woman. When we were serving as mission president in New England, Tibby was back there with Florence Jacobson looking for chandeliers and antiques for the restoration of the Lion House and the Beehive House. And woman of great insight.
Mom was always very loving, very nurturing, and as Harris has said, she was always there for us. I think that she quite often had the responsibility to take on both roles. Dad's work schedule was often hectic, and he was at work for very long hours, and so for us growing up, we knew that Mom would always be there for us.
Roy never has any money. I mean cash. I bet if somebody robbed him, they'd feel sorry for him and give him $10. But he does have a credit card. But one time he's going to New York and stopped the cashier to cash a check.
He went down to cash a check at the main office, and the teller was fairly new and didn't recognize him or know who he was. And he pulled up his account, the teller pulled up his account, and there wasn't enough money in it to cover the check.
He says, she said, I'm sorry, but you're overdrawn. What do you want, 20 bucks? He's going to New York, that's all he got to take. I said, he's the chairman of this bank, Wes Hamilton said. And Roy cut him off and said, young lady, you're absolutely right. Don't make any difference who it is. If they don't have the funds, doesn't make any difference. So I loaned him 20 bucks. And he paid it back.
The gift that Roy and Tibby made to the expansion and renovation project of Pioneer Memorial Theater is a wonderful expression of not only their great philanthropic spirit, but of their love for and faith in the importance of the arts in our community and of the theater in our community. And it's such a pleasure to be able to rename this building, the Roy W. and Elizabeth E. Pioneer Memorial Theater, for two people who've been instrumental in creating theater in this community.
She did the things that all mothers do, I think. You know, she took us to swimming lessons and music lessons and all of the rest. I think one of her greatest loves as we were growing up was working with young people in the LDS Church's Golden Gleaners, MN and Golden Gleaners program, as it was known at the time. I remember we had, you know, it was just a feature of our household, is we had a lot of kind of young adults that she was working with in her church work were always over at the house, and it was clear that she really loved being involved in helping young people find direction, whether it was her own kids or those in the neighborhood.
There's one other dimension to Roy Simmons and to Tibby Simmons, and that is a deep and abiding spirituality. Roy's a prayerful man. He's an ordained patriarch in the church, and that's a very significant spiritual calling. And if you want to know Roy and Tibby, you need to know that about them, and that came from their very early life. Even though Roy was orphaned in those homes where he was taught that spiritual dimension that stayed with him.
When they think Roy Simmons, I think they think of a very successful businessman. But there's not only another side. It's a bigger side than that. He's a great spiritual person. He loves people, and he would just do anything to help anybody. If somebody only had a list of all the things that he's done quietly, without anybody knowing, but helped so many people.
The poem says, he worked by day and toiled by night. He gave up play and some delight. Dry books he read and new things to learn, and forged ahead success to earn. He plodded on with faith and pluck, and when he won, men called it luck. That's Roy Simmons.
It is as perfect a marriage as I've ever known. You know, if they ever had real disagreements, we never saw that. And I see it when I go out and visit them today. They're extremely supportive of one another, and a great example for all of us in our marriages is to, I think what we want to be able to look back on when we're 60 years into our marriages. It's, I think, a great sign of a wonderful marriage that you just cannot imagine them apart, because each one complements the other so wonderfully. And I think that is that's certainly what we've seen during our whole lives, is that they are such a natural complement for one another, and they're so respectful of one another, and there's just unquestioned deep love for one another.
Well, I think he probably chuckles under his breath and says he's not a worthy recipient, but he will humor us to let us honor him. But when you think of a man who is really a giant in our community, who has done so much for the community, and you look at the legacy that he has created and that he's leaving behind, he is a worthy recipient.
He really has felt a lot of gratitude for a community that allowed him to succeed. He came to Salt Lake when he was 8 years old. Really had nothing, and this community has been really good to him and to our family.
Roy has become a citizen of the world. With his beloved Tibby, he has traveled far and wide. He is one who enjoys life and savors its every aspect. Loyal to his many friends, they in turn are greatly pleased to honor him. I add my own affectionate salute to that of the very many who admire and love him.
We have been married 62 years.
And I still like him.